In every corner of Singapore, hidden among the familiar streets and quiet estates, lie stories that few dare to speak of. From late-night encounters to whispers in the dark, these are tales that blur the line between the ordinary and the unexplainable. Welcome to the Morbid Codex. It was during COVID when my friend and I went to view a flat on Purvis Street. The unit was at the back of a shop house, partitioned from the front, which was occupied by a restaurant. The entrance was through a dark, narrow alley where people parked their cars and motorbikes. I arrived earlier than my friend, around 8 p.m. The moment I stepped into that alley, I felt uneasy. It was gloomy and filthy by Singapore standards, so different from the lively Purvis Street just a few steps away. The agent led me up to the studio on the 4th floor. The rent was suspiciously cheap for the market at that time, which was the only reason I was interested. As we entered, the agent switched on the lights. For 2 seconds, they flickered, and in that flicker, I swear I saw the silhouette of a woman standing by the window. But when the light stabilized, there was nothing there. I brushed it off. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't welcome. The room smelled damp and rotten, like an old place left too long in the dark. I pulled my mask down to breathe, placing it on a desk while I walked around. The place felt heavy, oppressive. The agent mentioned the previous tenant was a European guy who left suddenly due to illness. That wouldn't have been strange, except the flat was littered with strands of long, black hair, all over the floor, especially near the window that overlooked the alley. The window itself was slightly ajar, and even across the frame, strands of hair were tangled. But the agent and I both had short hair. After about 10 minutes, my friend finally arrived. He barely looked at the place before signaling me to leave. As I picked up my mask, my stomach dropped. Long black hairs were stuck all over it. There was no wind, no explanation. Horrified, I tossed it in the bin and put on a spare one before we left in a hurry. When we got outside, my friend admitted why he had rushed us out. When he approached from the alley, he saw something impossible. A woman crawling out of the flat's window, scaling down the wall at an inhuman speed before vanishing around the corner. We went straight to Bugis Junction after that, just to be in the crowd and shake off whatever we had carried with us. Later that night, I checked the photos I had taken of the flat. Every single one was blurry, distorted, and the one of the window had strange dark blotches on it. The images made my skin crawl, so I deleted them immediately. I never went back to Purvis Street since then. I used to work night shift as a security guard at an old warehouse along Penjuru Road. If you know the area, you'll know it's mostly industrial, quiet at night, except for the occasional container trucks passing by. Most nights were uneventful, just me sitting at the guardhouse, doing my rounds, and waiting for the sun to rise. But there was one night that I'll never forget. It was close to 2 a.m., and I had just finished my patrol around the compound. The air was heavy with that salty smell from the nearby Jurong River, and the whole place was dead quiet. As I headed back to the guardhouse, I noticed something odd. The sensor light near the loading bay flicked on. Usually, it only comes on when there's movement, but no trucks had come in that night, and the place was locked down. I walked over to check. The bay was empty, but the light stayed on. Then I heard it. The sound of metal chains dragging against the floor. Long, slow drags echoing inside the warehouse. At first, I thought maybe one of the workers had stayed behind without signing out. But when I shone my torch through the side windows, the place was empty, just stacks of pallets and machinery. Still, the sound of the chains continued deeper inside. My heart started to race. I wanted to radio my supervisor, but I didn't want to sound stupid reporting something like this. So I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air was colder than outside, unnaturally cold. The dragging stopped the moment I entered. I called out, "Hello? Anybody inside?" My voice echoed back, but there was no reply, just silence. I stood there for a few seconds, shining my torch around, when I noticed something at the far end of the warehouse. Between the rows of pallets, there was a dark figure, completely still, facing away from me. I froze. For a moment, I thought it was just a worker, but then I realized the figure's head was tilted unnaturally low. I took a closer look and saw a shadow of a man hanging himself. My torchlight flickered, and when it steadied, the figure was gone, just vanished. That was when I ran out of the warehouse. My chest was tight, and I could barely breathe. Back in the guardhouse, I locked the door and sat in silence, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. But here's the part that still gives me chills. When I checked the CCTV footage later, the cameras had caught something. At exactly 2:07 a.m., the light by the loading bay switched on by itself. A few seconds later, the footage showed faint movement, like a shadow sliding across the ground. No person, no worker, just a long, shifting shadow dragging itself across the floor. I lasted only a week after that. I told my supervisor I couldn't handle night shifts anymore. I used to work shifts that ended pretty late, and sometimes I'd catch the last bus home from Tampines Interchange. If you've ever taken the very last bus, you'll know the feeling. The depot is half shut, lights are dim, and there's this strange quiet that doesn't feel like Singapore anymore. That night, I caught the very last service, 969, around midnight. The bus was empty except for an old uncle sitting right at the back. I didn't think much of it. I was tired, just wanted to go home. The bus ride was quiet at first, just the usual hum of the engine. But a few stops in, I realized something strange. The uncle never moved. No shuffling, no phone light, no sound at all. He just sat there staring straight ahead. I tried not to overthink it, but after a while, I noticed something else. The driver never seemed to look back. Normally, you'd see the driver would at least glance in the rearview mirror, right? But this driver, he just kept his eyes on the road, stone-faced, as if he knew better than to look. I decided to get off earlier than usual, just to shake off the unease. I pressed the bell, walked down the aisle, and as I passed the uncle, I swear I saw his head tilt ever so slightly, like he was following me with his eyes. But his face didn't move at all. The doors opened, I got off, and the bus drove away. Just as it turned the corner, I glanced up. and the bus interior lights flickered. For a split second, I could see rows of people sitting inside, every seat full, all of them staring out of the window looking at me, dead silent. And the next second, when the bus passed me by, the windows were pitch black. No silhouettes, no passengers. All lights are off, just empty seats, not even the uncle. When I got back, I told my mom about what happened. She told me I was probably imagining because I was too tired, but I insisted on what I saw. She listened quietly and suggested we go to the nearby church the next day. I wasn't particularly religious, but she said it was better to be safe. The priest there listened, prayed over me, and gave me a small cross to keep. I don't know if it was just my imagination that night, or if something really boarded the bus with me. But since then, I've taken that same route home many times, and nothing strange has happened again. Maybe it was the prayer, maybe it was the cross, or maybe, whatever it was, just needed to be left behind. The night never truly ends in Singapore. Spirits still move when no one's looking, and silence often hides the loudest screams. If you enjoyed these tales, don't forget to subscribe to the Morbid Codex, because there are many more horrors waiting to be told.